Geez, you're a labour camp survivor. So how long did you have to spend in jail?
I spent more than 9 years.
14,000 liver transplants.
They have proved that the organ harvesting did exist, just like what they have done to Uyghurs in Xinjiang and the Tibetans.
John, you're a Falun Gong practitioner in Australia. Now, what exactly is Falun Gong?
Falun Gong is a traditional Chinese cultivation exercise. It is based on three principles. The three principles are truth, compassion, and forbearance. It aims to improve people's xinxing or character, moral or morality, in other words. Also, improve people's health by doing meditation, improve themselves to be a good person.
In Box Hill, there's a number of practitioners who hand out pamphlets about the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners in China by the CCP. These practitioners in Melbourne seem very positive people, very happy. Why is it such a threat in China for the CCP?
Falun Gong is rooted in traditional Chinese culture. The traditional Chinese culture is a brilliant culture which has a history of several thousand years. The Communist Party, after it came into power in 1949, it launched a series of political movements to eradicate traditional Chinese culture. Anything that's different from the communist ideology, they will see it as a threat to them. While the communist ideology is based on theories like class struggle, it instigates struggle between people. Fundamentally, it is based on atheism, while Falun Gong admits the existence of higher beings or gods. And another fact is that Falun Gong developed very fast in China. Just within 7 years before the persecution, the population practicing Falun Gong increased more than the number of Communist Party members.
And was that in the 1990s?
Yeah, it was in 1990s. So the Communist Party, they thought that Falun Gong practitioners are more than Communist Party members. They want to control everything in China, including people's thoughts. So they don't tolerate any group that is so big and has so different thoughts from communist ideology. I think that's the main reason they want to eradicate Falun Gong.
So eradication is a very strong word, and there seems to be a correlation in what is a very scary practice of what the Falun Gong practitioners were showing me in Box Hill in Melbourne about this organ harvesting. The Falun Gong numbers increased greatly during the 90s, and there was also an increase of liver transplants specifically during the 7 or 8 years in the 90s. That had increased, however, from 1999 to roughly 2005, it increased to 14,000 liver transplants. So there seems to be a very strong correlation in that time period, in the 90s and 2000s, and with hospitals that delivered transplant operations. There used to be only 20 in China. In that space of 10 or so years, it developed into 500 hospitals. A researcher, Xuan Wang, is investigating this over roughly 10 years. They had people calling hospitals and asking for specifically organs from Falun Gong practitioners. I mean, it seems just such an atrocity.
As you said, researchers or investigators have done a lot of jobs to verify or collect evidence about it. So there's quite a few reports with lots of evidence There's also a tribunal in Great Britain. They have proved that the organ harvesting did exist in China, and it is in a large scale, very serious atrocities. Personally, I was persecuted in China. At that time, I was put behind bars in a prison. The government requested Falun Gong practitioners there to do quite a few blood tests and other tests, including the cardiography and the testing to check eyes, do x-rays on our chest. Those checks are only done for Falun Gong practitioners, not other people. Falun Gong practitioners were abused in prison and in labor camps. You can't persuade me that the government actually they care about our health, but they suddenly try to do very detailed health checks.
John, so how did you actually end up behind bars in the first place?
That was because in 1999, the Communist Party started to crack down on Falun Gong, and they banned all the public activities of Falun Gong. Actually, yeah, after that, we as a group of practitioners, we still participated in different activities, including clarifying truths of Falun Gong to Chinese people, handing out flyers, but not publicly. We did a lot of things to tell people what is real Falun Gong. So that is why I was put behind bars.
I understood that around that time, so many people were put in jail. So how long did you have to spend in jail?
I spent more than 9 years.
9 years?
Yeah, I spent more than 9 years in jail. I was arrested in 2001 and was released early 2010.
And what was so your crime to spend 10 years in jail, 9 years in jail, was to simply be a Falun Gong practitioner?
Because I insist on practicing Falun Gong and tell people about the truth. Because in China, all the medias are controlled by the Communist Party. They staged propaganda against Falun Gong, trying to demonize us and stigmatizing us. The Communist Party didn't follow laws. The laws are actually very vague. They have great space to verdict people at their will. They can sentence you as long as they wish. They control everything. They control the court. They control the police. They control the prosecutors. And for other minority groups in China, it's similar. Yeah, it's just like what they have done to Uyghurs in Xinjiang and the Tibetans, and also you can see what they have done in Hong Kong. Yeah. So they didn't follow laws. Actually, there's no rule of law in China. It's rule of the Communist Party.
What was it like in jail on a day-to-day basis?
For Falun Gong practitioners, they were forced to give up their faith. They were deprived of sleep. They were forced to watch those brainwashing videos created by the government, slandering Falun Gong. And after that, they will have to do many slavery labors.
And how do they stop you from sleeping?
They ask other inmates. The police ask them they sit beside you, and they have different shifts. Poke you. They just keep you not sleeping for a long time.
So after 10 days of sleep deprivation and you are basically mentally broken down, what happens after 10 days?
People have to give up. in exchange for a little bit more sleep.
And what kind of slave labor?
They may ask you to make plastic flowers for selling on markets, wrapping candies, and those candies will also be sold on market. One of my schoolmates, she was in female jail, Beijing, and they were doing many sewing works.
Yeah, sewing.
They're just making profit for the jail or for the Communist Party.
These products, were they only sold in China or were they exported overseas?
I don't know because we can't tell just from the product itself. There was some truths revealed by Falun Gong practitioners in different areas that the products have already been sold to different parts of the world.
The American border patrols they managed to stop, I think it was 14 tons of human hair that had been harvested, I believe from the Uyghurs in the Xinjiang province. So yeah, it's quite possible that the results from the slave labor of the Falun Gong would easily end up in Australia as well. What city was the jail that you were in?
I was in Beijing, but the jail was in another close to another city, but it's part of Beijing's jail administration.
How many can that one jail hold?
It's a big jail, and they have a group of jails in that area. They can jail 1,000 criminals there.
So are these jails in other cities as well?
Yeah. Each city has its jail. One of my schoolmates, he was sent to the Shanxi. That's a male jail for Shanxi province.
What about like Guangzhou?
Guangzhou? Yeah, of course, they have.
In Victoria, under Daniel Andrews, we have Global Victoria has projects in certain cities.
The Premier, who we will hear from shortly through a video message, has just returned from the Belt and Road Forum. We run 5 offices across China, based in Shanghai and covering Beijing, Nanjing, Chengdu, and of course Hong Kong.
We're dealing trade with these people in these cities where there's this massive persecution of minorities in China. It seems a very strange way to run a state here in Australia.
Shanghai does have a jail named Tilanqiao. One of my acquaintances, he was jailed there and he was badly mistreated there. They broke one of his bones on the shoulder. Yeah, he was jailed for more than 10 years there. He was sentenced to 13 years.
13 years.
Yeah.
And is that a pretty common sentence?
For Falun Gong practitioners, it's common. Lots of practitioners were sentenced to more than 10 years.
After you left jail, how did you end up in Australia?
At first, they still have 2 years of so-called political rights deprivation. I was still monitored by the local police. They don't allow me to apply for a passport. And after those 2 years expired, I went to apply for a passport. I tried to apply for a PhD scholarship in University of Queensland. And I successfully got one, so I came to Australia.
John, you've been in Australia since 2012. Have you been able to practice Falun Gong?
I have been able to practice Falun Gong after I came to Australia.
One lady came up to me one day and she was crying and she was saying, why do you let them into Australia? I believe she was referring to some CCP spies. Do you have any knowledge about that happening to any of your colleagues?
Personally, I didn't experience any interference from the Chinese spies. In Queensland, we were attacked once by a Chinese company. They were a food delivery company and they posted articles online to attack Falun Gong practitioners. We brought them to the local Human Rights Council.
And was there any positive result from that?
I can't talk about the solution because that was required by law to keep it as
Sure.
a secret. Yeah.
Posted in Mandarin.
Yeah.
Who would read that?
The audience would be local Chinese community. Chinese community, they use WeChat. That article was posted on WeChat.
With WeChat, does that mean so someone in Melbourne would see that just as easily as Queensland?
Everywhere in the world can see that, but it's targeting Chinese community in Queensland. It instigated hatred among Chinese people. They have quite many comments under that article
from a section of the Chinese community in Queensland or in Australia.
Yeah.
Would you say that's a large section or a small section?
It wouldn't be a very large section. I think most people, they may browse the contents of the article, but they may not leave any comments.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether that would be more recent arrivals from China that would be doing that, because previous generations of migrants who emigrated from China who were escaping CCP, this is decades and decades ago. I presume it wouldn't be them having an issue with Falun Gong practitioners.
The company, mostly comprised of young people, I think. And the Communist Party, they do have a brainwashing strategy across the country. They don't have an idea of what Chinese Communist Party has done to Chinese people in the past.
This is youth in China, you mean?
Yeah, what I mean is that in China, people were brainwashed by the Communist Party, and when they came to Australia, if they spent not long time here, they may still have the mentality of those propagandas.
Do you think if they spend some time in Australia, that weakens over time the stronghold of the CCP propaganda?
It depends. One of the factors is the source of information. So for Chinese people, many of them rely on WeChat, and WeChat is actually information control tool. So if they stick to that, they may not be able to have true information about the world. But if they are open-minded and they are willing to read more information from different sources, they will gradually find out the truth. They read more information from alternative medias other than the Communist Party-backed medias. They can have more chance to find out the truth.
Practicing Falun Gong here, does that still cause issues for family members back home in China from the CCP?
Yes, sometimes the CCP may think if they put some pressures on the family members in China, they may pass on the pressures to Falun Gong practitioners in Australia. In practice, it's not as effective as they think it might be. Here in Australia, we have freedom of belief and speech. They don't have a valid excuse to do anything to the family members.
In China, it became illegal for anyone to hold up a banner to say anything positive about Falun Gong. It reminds me a little bit of what's been happening here in Melbourne, in Daniel Andrews' Labor Victoria. Anybody holding up a sign last year was arrested. They couldn't be put in jail for, well, I know some people were put in jail for a few days. What are your views on someone like Daniel Andrews, who's been so enthusiastic about signing up to the One Belt, One Road initiative? What's your view on an Australian politician doing something like that?
It's a serious issue because it's part of Chinese Communist Party's infiltration into Australia. The Communist Party have great economic power now. They can bring lots of money into Australia, but that's not free. They want their influence. They want our resource. They want the media to be in favor of them, and they will change gradually many aspects of Australian society. You can see from what happened in United States, where the Communist Party has been infiltrating for many years. The big techs and the medias can ban anyone which has different views and different voices. It may change the society gradually without you even being aware about that. But after many years, you may find the environment around you have been changed to something very unfamiliar to you that can turn against you. Yeah, gradually, the freedom may have lost after many years. So I think for politicians, they should long-term view regarding this issue. An economic benefit is only one factor.
Nothing comes for free. So taking money or dealing with this one belt, one road will come at a great cost to Australia.
Yeah.
Geez, you're a Labor camp survivor. That's amazing. It's amazing. So I'm glad that you've managed to escape and come to Australia. I just hope that it doesn't come here as well, because it seems to be happening in Melbourne with Dan Andrews, who's so connected with the CCP. So thanks very much, John. Thank you.